Hey guys, welcome to a Better You podcast. This is Anthony McFarland. In this episode, I want to continue the discussion of how to create healthy boundaries. I want to open up with sharing a letter from a friend of mine that she received. She leads a women's group, and I thought it was really good because in this letter it talked about why people's boundaries aren't working. And this particular lady said, I personally know the frustration of saying something has to change in a relationship, but feeling stuck when the other person isn't cooperating with those needed changes. She goes on to say, I also know what it feels like to be paralyzed by another person's choices that break your heart over and over and over again and not know what to do about it. And she goes on to describe how your body tenses and your pulse quickens because all you really want is for this person to stop doing whatever it is that they're doing, right? And she talks about how you can pray about an individual's behaviors or a situation and, talk about it, talk about it, talk about it. How you try to navigate through it, but at some point in time, uh, you know, nothing works. And although you're trying to do everything within your power to get the other person to change, and one of the things that she talked about in this particular letter is how you can love them but you can't change them. And I thought that was really good. And it's a terrible hard truth to accept, but it's actually one of the most freeing truths um, I've learned to embrace. If you have a relationship in your life, friendship, spouse, child, mother, parent, where you know something is wrong, but you can't figure out what to do, I believe that getting the right help, receiving the right instructions, which is a part of what this podcast is all about, um, helps you work through those things. Boundaries aren't going to fix the other person. I share it with you in part two, and I've shared various times if you followed me for any length of time, how boundaries aren't for other people, they're for you. And so when you understand that boundaries aren't going to fix the other person, but they are going to help you stay fixed on what is good, what is acceptable, and what you need to stay healthy and whole, that's really what it's all about. And here's the deal, you're not by yourself. There's a lot of people, the majority of people, I would say, in any in dealing with relationships. Again, it could be work relationships, church relationships, family relationships, community relationships. Struggle in this area. It's a challenge. Why? Because you're dealing with people, humanity, and one of the things that I found on this journey as a counselor, as a coach, as a pastor, that man, one of the toughest things for people to do is to change. As I was preparing for this broadcast, I was just looking at some quotes on about change, right? And Albert Einstein said the measure of intelligence is the ability to change. Do you know how many people think that they're really smart because they have an education, because they have maybe even a PhD? They have certain credentials, but they don't have the ability to change. So it speaks to their intelligence. The greatest discovery of all time is that a person can change his future by merely changing his attitude. And I think we all need to remind ourselves that every day the clock resets itself. Every day. So every day Every day, we all have an opportunity every day to change, right? To make the necessary adjustments in our lives. And then one of the other things that is so important that we understand as human beings dealing with relationship is that we cannot allow rejection to create self-doubt, right? So with that, I hope that inspires you just a little bit. But I want to get into this in this episode today, and further talk about some of the steps to creating healthy boundaries. And I want to say thank you for joining me. Pull out a pad, pull out a pen, and take some copious notes. If you're driving, of course, hey, don't try to take any notes. Come back and listen to this episode later. But I guarantee you that some of the points, some of the wisdom principles I'm going to share with you for creating healthy boundaries will actually bless you. All right, let's get into this. Here's the first thing that we need to understand, and that is being honest about what you need is very important. Communicating transparently is an important part of every healthy relationship. Again, I don't care if it's within the family construct, work construct, marriage construct. When discussing boundaries with an individual, with your partner, being honest about what you are comfortable with or not comfortable with will ensure that they know what you truly expect in your relationships or what you expect from them. And it's okay, again, to be transparent and communicate what your needs are, what you need from that person in the relationship, or what doesn't work for you. You could even try, writing down your expectations so that you are clear about what you want when sharing them with your friend, with your spouse, with even your supervisor. The next thing that is very important is that you also, when you think about creating healthy boundaries with your partner, with your spouse, you have to listen to what your partner needs, your friend needs, hear me, your spouse needs. And since you expect your partner to honor your boundaries, it's also important to fully listen to their needs as well, and not listen on defense to defend why you do or why you respond or why you react the way that you react. Relationships are a two-way street. So you'll need to listen to the boundaries they want to set and discuss those as well. Remember that in a relationship, you should be able to say anything, but the way you say it matters. And I tell couples all the time, I tell people who have communication deficits when it comes to communicating with other people, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And so therefore it's important that your words be laced with grace, with honey. Are you follow what I'm saying? So it's palatable to the other person. The other person is open to receive what it is that you have to say. Scripture even says a soft answer turns away wrath, right? It dismantles any type of wrath or anger, those types of things. So with that, you also have to communicate with respect. Relationships include respect from both sides. The best way to communicate your boundaries with your partner is with compassion, understanding, and respect for each other's expectations, right? Why? Because you have a love for them. Or you love them, right? And they should love you enough to want to respect you. And so having respect each time you communicate will ultimately make your relationship healthier and stronger over a period of time. Now, listen to me, it takes work to make these changes. I know what I'm talking about personally because I've dealt with this in my marriage. I've dealt with this with my children. I've dealt with this within the ministry and work construct, right? So because we're all wired a certain way and we've developed certain behavior patterns that may not be healthy or work for other people because we all have a communication style, which that's a whole nother episode. That's a whole nother subject to discuss, and maybe we will. Maybe I'll put that on my list of shows to do. Now, there's another component that I want to point out when it comes to your relationship with your children, if you're a parent, right? In terms of respect, right? Building healthy boundaries, respecting even your children, and making sure that your children understand how to respect your boundaries. Again, boundaries can be important in parent child relationships. For example, um, parents might ask their children never to enter their bedroom without knocking first, which is very reasonable, in order to maintain what? Some privacy. Children, in turn, might ask their parents to never read their diaries or journals so that they can maintain some privacy of their own. Or are you following me? Now, parents can choose whether to respect a child's proposed boundaries. They might reject some. I've rejected some of my children's boundaries for safety reasons, right? But it's important to be clear about the boundaries they do intend to respect in order to build trust with you and for you to build trust with them within that relationship. I'm going to tell you, man, that goes a million miles. And so it's important that no matter what type of relationship it is, it calls for respect. It calls for making sure that there's mutual respect there within that relationship. There was a article published by Cloud and Townsend some time ago that stated when one person is in control of another, love cannot grow deeply and fully as there is no freedom. I thought that was powerful. In other words, healthy boundaries can be the difference between a healthy, happy relationship and a toxic, dysfunctional relationship. A lack of boundaries can lead to an unhealthy relationship because one partner may feel that he or she has no privacy anymore, right? However, too many boundaries can also be an issue, as in people who refuse to spend time with the friends and families of their partners. In the case of people in relationships who also have children, boundaries can be particularly important. For example, one research paper looking at self care in new mothers highlighted a willingness to delegate and the ability to set boundaries as an important practical application of self care. A new mother, for example, who can set boundaries with her partner in order to respect her needs will likely be better off than one who cannot. And this will help the relationship as well. So the fact that boundaries are important in relationships underscores the importance of setting and respecting boundaries. It's important to understand and respect each other's boundaries in a long-term relationship. Again, whether it's friendship, marriage, whatever it is. Are you following what I'm saying? It's important that that respect is there. And that's probably a big point. And you may say, you sound a little redundant today in regards to this part of this episode. Well, it's so important. Respect is so important. You know, it's so important. It's so important. It's, you know, if you don't have respect for a friend, your parent, a child, your partner, man, maybe you shouldn't be doing life with them. A good way to avoid crossing someone's boundaries and to avoid having one's own boundaries crossed is to have honest conversation about boundaries with that individual in a very respectful, meaningful way. That helps cut out the foolishness and the chaos and the conflict and confusion that so many people face in relationships. Now, I think it's important that when you understand building healthy boundaries, whether you're at work, at home, or hanging out with a friend, it all hinges upon understanding the different types of boundaries that exist. And there's basically, in my research, 5 different types of boundaries. One is physical, your physical person, which refers to your personal space, your privacy, and your body. You might be someone who is comfortable with public displays of affection, hugs, kisses, and holding hands, or you might be someone who prefers not to be touched in public. So that's an area of a boundary. Sexual. There's sexual boundaries. These are your expectations concerning intimacy. Sexual comments and touches might be uncomfortable for you. Certain statements made, how they're being made, before or during, sexual intercourse. So that's a boundary. Intellectual. Intellectual. These boundaries concern your thoughts and beliefs. Intellectual boundaries are not respected when someone dismisses another person's ideas and opinions. Everybody has a right to their views. Everybody has a right to their beliefs. That even ties into that of your spiritual life, right? Everybody has different spiritual views, and so they're still to be respected, although you may not agree with them or totally disagree with them. Don't just dismiss their beliefs, their thoughts. Why? That ties back into respect, right? And then there's the emotional component where you set boundaries with your emotions. And this refers to, of course, our feelings. You might not feel comfortable sharing your feelings about everything with someone else. Instead, you prefer to share gradually over a period of time. But again, we all handle our emotions different. And so it's important that we communicate how we're emotionally wired with our friends, with our spouse, with those we do life with, so that they can respect your emotions. And then, of course, this is a big one, especially for couples, financial. Man, this is a big one. Watch this, money is a big deal. So if you like to save money, not spend it, on this, that, and or another, go, shopping on these shopping sprees. Watch this. You have to, especially spouses, those things need to be discussed really before you get married, right? But a lot of people, because they view money differently, they manage money differently, and a lot of it is based on, you know, childhood experiences, things that they experienced in their former life before connecting with another person. It's important that you express your views and your boundaries for money, how you like to save, right? Or you may have the faith to spend everything, and the other person says, no, I don't have the faith to spend everything. I believe in saving and being a good steward of my money, so I'm not frivolous. Are you following what I'm saying with my financial affairs? Where someone else, their view of money is it's meant to be spent. So in essence, when it comes down to setting boundaries for your finances, for your money, set clear financial goals. Create a budget for yourself, for your family. As a husband and wife, sit down and be clear on what your budget is, what you'll spend money on, what you will not spend money on, or what you'll discuss with each other before you spend money if it's not what you originally agreed to. And then again, it's just about prioritizing your financial goals, and then setting the ground rules for how you're going to handle and manage money. So, again, it can be a tough conversation to address any of these areas of setting boundaries, but the bottom line is that disordered boundaries create confusion and inevitably lead to resentment and conflict. So, drawing healthy boundaries uh, allows us the satisfaction of being authentically known for who we are and what we want and what we will no longer put up with in some respects. We no longer are pretending to feel something that we don't or be someone we're not. We're no longer keeping others at arm's length to protect ourselves from being hurt. We're no longer cutting people out of our lives, hear me, just because we're upset. We're no longer cutting people out of our lives rather than telling them how upset we are, expressing how we feel in a righteous way, in a graceful way, in a kind way. There's true liberation and a feeling of this lightness that comes from having healthy boundaries when both can agree and respect each other. See, instead of feeling like a victim where life is happening to you, a boundary skill set allows you and I to be in control of our destiny as we dictate what happens to us. Well, with that being said, I hope you have been blessed by this episode. Again, let me know what your takeaways are, and I'll look forward to seeing you next week.